before I mention this, I just want to say something that this contamination is important, and I'll explain why it's important for agricultural workers, but this contamination doesn't mean we have a strong reaction to GMO rice and governments are cracking down. What it means is that governments will say, well, it's everywhere, so we should accept it. Contamination has become the backdoor means of getting commercial approval. That's what happened to BT cotton in several states in India. It was never legally planted, it was never legally approved, but because it contaminated all of the cotton in certain states, the state government said, okay, now we approve BT cotton because it's everywhere. If it remains illegal, we don't know what to do. GMO soya in Brazil is the same. It spread from Argentina, and after it spread into Brazil, and Monsanto wanted to sue all of the farmers for illegally growing it, even though the farmers were contaminated by it, were victims of it. Monsanto said, this is our GMO, so we want to sue. The result, the Brazilian government said, okay, in that state, where contamination is out of control, it's legal. You see? Cross-pollination. I want to say something about this because there's a myth. Because the fact is, rice is mainly self-pollinating. Okay, mainly self-pollinating. So when you argue with supporters of GMO rice, they say there's no danger of contamination because it's self-pollinating. Yeah, the pollen is not. It's not like canola and wheat and these other problem crops. But a study in China in 2003, published in 2003, showed that there's a very high risk of cross-pollination from GMO rice to non-GMO rice through pollination, but also to wild rice varieties and weedy rice can be cross-pollinated. The physical movement of seed is the main vector, the main means of contamination, meaning birds, like in Delhi. We shot video film at one stage when I was helping an environmental activist in music of 1,000 birds taking off from the GMO field trial. Those birds are spreading GMO rice throughout the country. People in their shoes and their boots or stealing it. Animals. There's spillage during transportation, as you know, and every grain is a seed. There are dormant seeds in the soil. Certain rice varieties can remain in the soil for up to 2 years. And what happened in the United States was they had a field trial of Liberty-linked rice. They harvested it, they cleared the land, and then they let farmers grow commercial rice there to produce seed stock. They said the experiment's finished. But there was still GMO rice in the soil. And that was where the contamination occurred. And the contamination of seeds. Okay, next. Okay. So as I said, it can cross-pollinate. The pollen can spread to non-GMO rice, which was the big problem in the US. It can cross to wild rice. The study in China that was published in 2003 argued these are supporters, the scientists supporting and developing GMO rice, studied their own field trial and said, it will escape, it will contaminate, it will cross-pollinate. Right? They weren't criticizing or opposing, they were supporting GMO rice. And they said it will lead to the extinction of wild rice varieties. Traditional rice varieties will become extinct because of this cross-pollination. And weedy rice can also be cross-pollinated. I just want to explain this point of why that's a problem. In nature, our genes switch on and off. Okay? It's not always on. The gene that supposedly makes eyes blue or brown is not always on. Your eyes don't change color, but I can tell you the genes go on and off. Why genes go on and off is not understood. Okay? No one understands why our genes turn on and off. In a GMO crop, in any GMO crop, the gene they insert in the crop is always on. And that is fundamentally unnatural. The only genes on this planet that are always on are the ones that we made and inserted in another organism and switched them on. You take a piece of virus, you attach it to the gene, and the virus keeps that gene on all the time. And this has never occurred in nature, that a gene should be on all the time. Because this gene that they inserted in the crop is on all the time, if it crosses with another crop, another plant, that plant will adopt the gene from the GMO crop. It will, because the GMO crop is always the dominant species, because its genes are always switched on. Okay, that's a very important point. It is biological pollution. It is not like toxic pollution. It is not even like nuclear pollution. It is biological pollution. It is pollution that grows. Once it's out there, it will grow. Thank you. Okay, and so what has happened is the development of super weeds. Okay, if you have, remember I showed you Roundup Ready and Liberty Link. If you have herbicide tolerant crops, and those crops cross-pollinate, for example, as we've seen in Argentina, herbicide, glyphosate tolerant soya in Argentina crosses with other soya, that soya becomes herbicide tolerant. Okay? It adopts the GMO character. What happens with rice is that the weedy rice varieties, the grasses that are actually weeds, if they cross with the GMO crop, they are resistant to herbicide. The weeds, the weedy rice varieties, and the wild rice varieties become resistant to herbicide too. And if you have 3 different kinds of GMO rice, and even if you say these are separate, one is for insect resistant, one is for glyphosate resistant tolerance, one is for glufosinate tolerance, even if you say that, any single wild or weedy rice or non-GMO can end up with all those characteristics we call stacking, right? Through cross-pollination over time, a rice crop could end up, a rice plant could end up with 3 or 4 different GMO characteristics in one plant. So you get resistance that develops. And the result is you must apply more herbicide of a different kind to be effective. That's the consequence. If that herbicide tolerance you put in your GMO rice has spread to other kinds of rice, and you want to get rid of that other rice because it's a weed or it's wild, then you must apply more herbicide of a different kind, of a higher concentration and increased spray. For Roundup Ready soybean, there used to be a formula for application of mixing with water a certain amount. I believe it was something like 1 part to 200 parts water. Okay? In Argentina, where they grow Roundup Ready soya, they don't even mix it with water anymore because it would not be effective in managing weeds. You pour on pure glyphosate in the hope that it will actually kill something because there's so much resistance, tolerance. Okay? So there's increased spraying. The BT cotton in India, you remember when they promoted it, they said that you will only need to spray once at any one point of time. Now the recommended spraying is 5 times. It's more than a normal GMO crop. Okay? Because the tolerance level. Okay. Next.